Let's get started on the first panel for today. I just want to ask, do you guys standing up, don't you want to come and sit down? Come on up here. We like you so much. Move forward. Good. All right, so our first panel today is on digital's role in solving the energy crisis. So I would like for the following panelists to join me up here. And this is how we do this. We might as well settle that all at once. So every time I mention somebody's name, you applaud them wildly and with great enthusiasm so that they will feel happy and energetic when they get to the stage. So, Member of Cabinet for Executive Vice President Timmermans at the European Commission, Daniel Mess. Yay! Member of the European Parliament, Pernille Weiss. Come on, you might as well do it. I'll ask you to redo it.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Senior Vice President, Head of Research and Pre-Development at Siemens, Annemarie Grosse. And Vice President, Government Affairs International at Nokia, Marc Vancoppenolle.
Yeah, you look really very...
Have a seat.
Good.
Yeah. Hi.
So this is when you get out your smartphones and don't check your email, but write really, really cool questions that you would like to contribute into the panel. I will check them out on my phone, as this has actually a Wi-Fi connection. I'm going to give you just a brief background for why we have decided to do this panel, because when we say energy, it's almost, the world and surroundings. So Digital Europe holds the point of view that the EU should use the current energy and global warming crisis as an opportunity to incentivize the collaboration between the digital and energy sectors. Digital has an enabling potential and is a must-have in the fight to reduce emissions, increase energy efficiency, and the integration of renewables into the grid. So that's one point, and I also want to add, as we heard at the beginning of February, Digital Europe published a report on the digitalization of the energy ecosystem. The report identifies 4 key accelerators that the EU should focus on to truly drive forward the digital transformation in the energy sector, and they are data cooperation, green network infrastructure, investment, and enabling regulation. So that was just to give you the brief background. Now, before we get started with these 4 people, let's do a poll, just to start the fire up here. So get out those smartphones, go to Slido, and answer the following question. Does the EU have what it takes to become a global energy champion? Yes or no? It's that easy. And I would like you to vote now, and we'll look at that in a moment. Let's start out with you, Mr. Weiss. In the recent Green Deal industrial plan, the enabling power of digital to fight climate change was described by Digital Europe as a footnote. So would you say that policymakers are giving enough attention to the role that digital can play in helping to solve the current energy and climate crisis?
Yeah, thank you very much, and it's great to be back at Digital Europe, and great to start with a critical question for this panel, which is completely justified. No, it's not a footnote, and I will get to why I believe that, but I want to start why it shouldn't be a footnote. The European Green Deal desperately needs a digital injection. And to be honest, that's my first message, and my second message will immediately be, but twinning the green digital transition, so planning to do this together, use digital tech also for the Green Deal, is not working as it should. And that's really a warning. Planning these 2 transitions together, energy and digital, is not working as it should. And the area where this is most acutely the case, and that's the area where the European Commission is now acting, is exactly energy. With the war against Ukraine, we have to accelerate the shift to clean energy. And what that means is just astronomical. The electricity grid that you need by 2030, in terms of its capacity, its renewable energy that goes into it, the heat pumps, the electric cars, it's lots of competing uses. And you will not be able to do that if you don't do that smart from the start. And then I really mean smart energy grids at the top, and then at the local level, make sure that you have flexible tariffs, energy tariffs, and flexible grid access, all the way up to potentially, and I really believe in that, blockchain technologies that allow neighborhoods really to exchange energy with each other. That's why in October 2022, we proposed as a Commission an action plan to work exactly on this. Now, you always have to be humble, but I'm really proud that that action plan is there. It's really something that Digital Europe knows I've pushed massively on my own. I wouldn't have been able to do this without our Energy Commissioner, Kadri Simpson from Estonia, very digital mindset. And the action plan has lots of concrete actions that we need to take. It's indeed about sharing the data. It's about having the connectivity, giving highest visibility to the investments that are needed, and then the planning. And to be honest, in the planning, that's where I see the challenge, and that's where I see that it's not working as it should. And then I get to the footnote question. The idea that we've now, because like, if you look at a non-binding communication at Net Zero Industry Act, and when I have to check it myself again, even if it's a footnote there, digital for energy is really a full chapter of the story where it matters, namely where the money is, the investments, and what we do there as the European Commission, and the reforms that we need across Europe to stay economically resilient. So in the Energy Action Plan, we've already said that national energy and climate plans and digital plans in the member states should work better together. Now, people working in the industry know how complex it is. You have an economics ministry and climate ministry on the one hand, digital ministry on the other. And the idea is really that member states should come to us with climate and energy plans that are smart. You know, how are you going to match the energy supply and the energy demand? How will you use digital technologies to help you there? And the same also show us how your digital plans also work for the energy and the climate. Now, where we've gone further, on the same day as we came out with the communication mentioned on Net Zero Industries, we came out with new guidance for the use of the recovery money and all the money to transition this energy system. And there we have said, do exactly that. When you plan for your money, make sure that you think about smart energy grids and solutions like blockchain. And that's where it matters. And now I fight in the Commission to even push this one edge further. Namely to say to our colleagues who work in the reform departments, you know, this should be a strategic priority across all the reform dialogues that the Commission has with the member states. How are you planning to digitize your energy systems? And I think on that basis, you know, again, it's the inverse. The European Green Deal desperately needs this digital injection. It's not a footnote, it's a full chapter. And but yeah, again, my serious warning, it's not working as it should so far.
Well, thank you for that. Let's still see your answers to our little poll. Does the EU have what it takes to become a global energy champion? So pretty split up in 55% who says yes and 45% who says no. Is this a surprise to you, Pernille Weiss?
No, actually not. And I'm wondering if people who were answering no, what was behind the no? My guess is that what we don't have is actually this sense of urgency,
right?
In policy making, and also in cross-country, cross-sector policy making. I mean, the Green Deal was announced as actually a twin transition, both energy technologies, traditional green technologies, and the digital technologies. But when we look at the Fit for 55 package, there's almost nothing about digitalization. It's in each of the directives that are being put out now for recasting, and some of them has ended in trilogue. But it's just like when my mother is serving dishes, she always puts a cherry tomato on whatever. And you kind of wonder, why is it there? And if you are not into that with what is being served, you don't eat it. Where digitalization is something like, it's a word we must have somewhere in the file, but we are really not working with it into the depths.
Why did it come to that?
I think in our culture, in energy policy in Europe, we are so fascinated by windmills or power to X examples. So we like to see big hardware. And we like also to fight about whether we are in favor of solar panels or windmills or whatever we like. digital is something that is invisible, but also because of data can be challenging to work with, because that will reveal the true story about who is actually delivering to the maximum of, for example, energy efficiency. I mean, we have hopefully the last trialogue tomorrow on the recasting of the energy efficiency directive, and still we are lacking true evidence for which countries, which sectors is actually in the forefront, making it possible for us to provide a binding target on energy efficiency, because that is really not rocket science. We know the hardware technologies, but we need the digitalization and the data to help us to really boost also the needed infrastructural investments.
Well, we'll get back to what are we going to do about it please a little later. Mrs. Grosse, do you find that the EU is fully prepared to address or that is minimize the impact of both the current and even the future energy crisis?
That's a tough one. Actually, I think we are well on our way, but we need to do more. Yeah. And reacting to what both my fellow panelists have said, I think what we need is actually digital decarbonization, because I believe, as we said, it's not mutually exclusive. It's when you put the two together where the power lies. And software, in my view, will be the great accelerator that will help Europe to address the energy crisis. Let me give you 3 concrete examples where I think digital will be essential in solving that energy crisis. On the first hand, it will be the enabler to facilitate decarbonization. Because if we want to decarbonize, that means more distributed energy resources to be fed into the grid. We're talking about renewables, wind, solar, hydrogen, storage, decentral generation. How do we get that fed into the grid in a sustainable and efficient way? It is with digital tools. So we need digital, we need software to achieve our renewable goals. It will also be essential to be digital if we want to secure energy supply, because digital models like digital twin allow us to project and match supply and demand much more efficiently, thereby preventing energy outages. And thirdly, digital software will allow us to be much faster in realizing the energy transition. Because as you said, we like to be obsessed with hardware. We like big things, we like hydrolyzers, we like power stations. But those are costly, those take time to build. But if we use digital tools smartly, we can leverage our existing grid infrastructure and make it much more flexible, make it faster, make it more efficient. So yes, we're on our way, but we need digital decarbonization to realize that dream of being energy secure, being energy independent.
That was a popular point of view. You can applaud. I thought I taught you that already. Go ahead. Mr. Vancoppenolle, I mean, surely it's for a panel like this, it's hard to disagree with what's being said up here, but surely we do need windmills, we do need solar panels. So what's with the focus on all the digital? Is that the solution to fighting off the energy crisis?
Yeah, I think, and thanks for the question, because obviously, you know, the twinning of the energy with the digital is absolutely critical. I mean, just taking a step back, I mean, why are we having this discussion here? I mean, if you look at the challenge of climate change, you know, there is this Paris Agreement where we should not get above the 1.5 degrees Celsius of global warming, and actually today we are at, I think, around 1.1 degree, 1.2 degrees, so the urgency is absolutely here to make sure that we are decarbonizing fast. Now, and if you look at the energy sector is actually responsible for 2/3 of the carbon emissions, so it's huge, and that's one of the critical sectors we have to work in. Now, if you look at the grid today, the grid was really built to actually, you know, send energy, but not to receive energy. And so if you get to the digitalization of the grid where you increase, you know, windmills, solar panels, but also add storage like, you know, batteries from cars or even batteries from stations, radio stations, for instance. If you put all this together, you need digital to make sure that the balance between generation of energy and consumption of energy is there, and so that there is a stability. And if you have the digital technologies to ensure this stability, you actually have a good grid that is reliant and resilient. So that's something that I think, you know, the digital sector and the energy sector need to work together on. And there are obviously policy discussions to have. We heard about, you know, the specific about the data sharing. I mean, if you put all these things to the grid, these things need to be able to talk to each other, meaning that you need to have a data sharing capability installed and also interoperability at that level. So, you know, I think this debate is critical to have the policies installed to have both the digital and the energy sector talking together. So making sure that, you know, at Commission level, but also in the various member states, we have the ministries of both aligning, and make sure that, you know, we understand what might be hurdles for digitalizing energy, and what might be, you know, specific things to do to incentivize the investments in these new digital grids.
There's somebody here who points out that a lot of attention has been given to Russia and its attacks. What about China, considering its capabilities? It's a bigger digital threat than Russia. And I'm not sure that we want to get into that whole discussion right now in the middle of the energy debate. But nonetheless, a lot of people interested in this angle to the discussion I'm just mentioning. That we'll try to see if we'll get a spot for that later on. And somebody also says innovation. Is that what's lacking? No.
Maybe when we talk about innovation, it's a little bit like we talk about digitalization. It's as if we know what it is about,
right?
But we don't actually program and ask the right questions at hand for a project to really boost its innovation potential. So
we should be asking those questions, or that.
And that is actually where digitalization and the data could help us. If we gave more power to the consumers, that data on your own energy consumption was more free available for both SMEs and for the private sector, for household owners, etc., so that we could open up an innovative business opportunity for other technologies or other ways of facilitating the energy use could be more available, so that the business cases would be more visible for the customers. And also, in order to bring us politicians, and now I also look at the Commission, because sometimes we micromanage a little bit too much, because we don't want to. We also fear of lacking out, and seems like if we don't have any interest in the challenges, and by that we are we are over-regulating. And we are also micromanaging, where we actually should step a little bit back and have the technology-neutral approach, and then better facilitate. Yes, yeah. Please. But also facilitate the frameworks for people who know better than people in the Commission, than people elected by the people, to actually come up with the better solutions. If we tell what the solutions should do, and then we mess a little bit out of the micro-management, whether it should be either windmill or solar panels or digital like XYZ, I mean, yeah, procurement is a big key to that, I think.
Okay, back to you, Mr. Mess.
Yeah.
Was it Frie first? I want to say
was
to
a
you all,
reaction
if somebody wants to pose ask a question within the audience, just raise your hand and the microphone will come up to you. And just, there are a few there. Okay, get the microphone over there. You first.
Yeah, I think this point cannot be stressed enough. I don't think we're lacking innovation. Yeah, I think we have brilliant minds in Europe, we have great institutions, great students, great companies. We are very resourceful. What we have is often an environment where regulation is actually inhibiting innovation from becoming commercially successful. And I think this is what we need to look at, especially you mentioned the topic of grids, yeah? We still have a lot of regulation in place that incentivizes grid operators to invest in CapEx, in big expenditures. Let's look at that. Let's instead incentivize them to invest in digital technologies, which are amortized very, very differently, yeah? So let's deregulate, digital decarbonization and the energy transition will only happen if we have market-based models for them, if there's business cases to be realized. So I think that's what we need to look at, not more regulation.
We'll talk a little bit more about deregulation, because of course regulations are always there for a reason. So there are risks to point out. We'll do Mr. Mess, and we'll come back to the microphone. Yeah.
Yeah, because indeed that's a crucial question. Like, it also depends a bit on the type of regulation that you talk about. Like, because Pernille, I do think that you need these binding targets and the dots on the horizon, what you want to achieve, because otherwise the innovators don't know what they need to work under. And for me, that question is actually pretty clear. You know, I think that really, if you want to have the energy grid of the future, and unless you want to have wind farms and solar panels literally everywhere, you need these smart solutions. You need to be able that people can use that energy flexibly at the time that they want. And one thing that will be coming out next week, which I think is crucial here, is these plans for the energy market design. Now, these are very politically controversial, as everybody knows, but one thing that I and also others are really pushing for is, like, let's use that energy market reform that we're going to do to make sure that we move away a bit indeed from these fully regulated energy tariffs based on capex. Let's unleash a bit like the flexibility tariff possibility. So to empower indeed the consumer to have flexible grid access on a grid serving approach. So to really say, I want to have a flexible tariff because I want to have the choice to actually charge this at night, charge that at the morning. And then ultimately, if they can use their car, their electric car, to give via sub-meter to give their flexibility, or with their neighbor, that is only to be applauded. And I think that is not to be underestimated. We are doing lots of these type of regulations that are about unleashing it. But I agree with Pernille that what we need to avoid is a perfect storm. That we're sort of in the Green Deal saying we have the climate targets, which I think are really crucial. At the same time, across the Atlantic, we have utterly bankable incentives for companies to really think of to invest in the green economy there. And indeed, when we come out with the more detailed regulations, delegated acts and that type of magic stuff, then we're either too late or it's too complicated. And at a certain point, indeed, investors will start saying thank you, but no, and that we absolutely need to avoid.
So I want to take a question here. Please refrain from giving very long political speeches and do questions or short comments.
Thank you very much. My name is Bridget Cosgrave, and I'm here on behalf of Sopra Steria, the French IT systems integrator. My question and comment is in follow-up to Pernille and Annemarie. Thank you for your excellent observations. Indeed, the DSOs these are electric guys, okay? None of the leadership are digital people. They've not been digital people in their careers, and we really need to help them and to reach out to them. And the other aspect is that in each of the member states, the grid, the last mile in the grid, is really managed at a very, very, very local level, okay? So, and I have this observation, you know, in France, you go and it's really at the district level. So my invitation to the members of the panel are, you know, what ideas do you have to really drag this leadership of the EDSOs? No discredit to these people, it's just they're in a different, you know, they're a different part of the engineering community. They're not digital. How can we bring them into the fold? And then at the very local level, you know, what is Parliament or what is the Commission doing to really get down to that local level? Because also those leadership of those organizations are not digital natives.
Mm-hmm. Very good question. I mean, I was born just next to the smallest ever district heating facility ever in Denmark. And as a conservative, a Danish conservative, we like community and the civil society culture, because it really can help us also to start the ripple effects of energy efficiency, for example. So I think what we need to do is to create a scale of community where we make it bigger, without losing the value of the local, meaningful approach and understanding of how what we do actually also create positive effect for the greater good of EU and for Europe. And that is where I hope that the energy market reform, but also what we are doing, hopefully after Fit for 55 files is closed and hopefully makes us reach the 2030 goal, that we can work on really designing a true harmonized inner market for energy, not only in our minds, because we have had the strategy for years, but we don't have it in either hardware or software. And that is where digitalization is a part of that journey, but also that the procurement of cross-country, cross-sector infrastructure of the grid could be a way to also make the gestalt of what is actually the local in the regional aspect. So I don't see it as something that belongs to the history, that we had the local units, but we need to make the communities bigger. And that is where we as a member of the European Parliament can do better, and also to understand each other's countries, and what are the starting point for the journey going forward, and also how we can then meaningfully make the legitimacy of the needed decisions made forward to make a more harmonious, coherent energy system and energy market and energy union in EU.
Anything to add to that particular question?
I think
Just briefly, yeah?
Very briefly, building on that, I think we need to think differently about grids. It's good that you mentioned the DSOs and the TSOs, but they're not the only players in future, right? They need to be educated, but we need to think about grids as a much more multidimensional construct, right? There will be the DSOs, there will be the TSOs, but then there's also the consumers who will be prosumers in this grid. And there will be buildings that, if we're thinking about them technologically smart, will be actually players in the grid. We have the technology available to make buildings an energy resource in the grid. So I think what we need is, in a way, living laboratories, projects, co-creation opportunities for industry and all these grid players to explore these forms about how the grid is evolving, because that way we're educating and we're creating opportunities.
Right.
Yeah, and just to add on that, because I think obviously the industry also has to play a role here in educating and in showing, the benefits of twinning digital with green. And just as an example, for instance, something that our company is doing in Nicosia in Cyprus is actually, we are helping the city to manage the smart city solutions that they have and to show actually the benefits that digital can bring in decarbonizing by various use cases, and also being part of the European Green Deal coalition. And there's actually a small movie on the Masters of Digital website, so if you're interested to see how that works, you should have a look at that as well.
So let's move a little bit forward to talking about, because you were mentioning all the great advantages, further digitalization of energy and so on and so forth. But what are the risks associated with doing so? Because there must be reasons why it's not going much faster than it is. How do we address the risks, and what are they?
Yeah, I think that obviously cybersecurity is a thing that you would need to work on if you digitize your energy grid, but that will be covered by other panels. For me, the biggest risk is that we don't do this proper planning, and that builds upon the points that were made on this excellent question on, how do you deal up until the local level with indeed an energy operator. Well, first of all, I think that what you need to show, based on indeed these existing cases, is what you can really bring. And I don't want to live in a world where building the energy grid of the future means don't heat your home in the evening, don't heat your car in the morning, or wait for a few months before you can get connected to the grid to start with. I want to live in a world indeed where a neighborhood can say, I'm living in one house in the street, I want to have my heat pump ready when I come home, but my solar panels on my roof are not delivering the energy because it's raining. Imagine you live in Brussels or Denmark. Right. And then your neighbor has the electric car parked in the street, and that's fully charged and can discharge it. So you want to live in that neighborhood where, for instance, blockchain allows these people via an energy currency system just to credit that with each other. And if you tell that powerful story based on examples, and I know Siemens is doing exactly something like that in Bavaria, then you can convince the local level, this is something worthwhile doing. And the second crucial element that we need is the data sharing, that is already mentioned. That for me is quite crucial, also to make sure that the SMEs, because let's face it, lots of innovations are with our SMEs, and they're apart from the powerful companies here on this panel, we need the SMEs to be part of this as well. And no SME will be shopping around for data in 27 countries under 27 sets of rules in 27 data formats. No SME in their right mind would do it, so we need to have this data sharing really in place so that also the DSOs can come on board with digital solutions from other companies, common ways to share that data, making sure that indeed the devices can speak to each other, and if need be, standard business arrangements that SMEs can easily use if they want to. And that is also a crucial part of the answer. Without the data, it won't happen.
What are the risks that you're trying to address with all this regulation?
I would like to add a risk that I really think is crucial because it's always overlooked when people like us meet together, because I come from the European Parliament, you come from the Commission, you come from the big companies, and all of you somehow represents these kinds of people in the complex system, in the community that we see for us. What we are missing is the national politicians. And I really mean that after being examining the past couple of years on the Fit for 55 files, because we have maybe we have climate ministers, but we for sure have energy ministers from every 27 countries, but they only see the world to their own border. So that is their interest, is to secure what is behind their own border. They don't see the collective of EU energy market and energy systems and the many incentives and dilemmas that there is. So in order to make all what we're talking about that should happen, again, it's not rocket science, we need the national politicians to engage and to understand how important role they play in order for us to harmonize cross-border. So that is a big, big risk if we don't come up with an innovative way of engaging national politicians into the EU energy policy making.
Yeah, and that's why we need these national energy plans and digital plans to be developed together. That is indeed where I think the planning, where it's not working. Twinning decisions not working there, indeed.
Exactly.
They don't do it together.
So let's ask everybody out here, do the benefits of digitalization as a solution to the energy crisis outweigh its risks? So let's just address that question right now. It's on the poll now. You can just answer yes, no, or maybe you're unclear. You can answer that too in this one. Do you find that as a representative of the private sector, that you have what it takes to push the boundaries of legislation as a company?
Whoa.
No, but do you have the access? Do you have the means? Do you do it?
We're here. I think we're trying.
Sure.
No, I think it's all about building the right coalitions, right? We're not in this alone. I think it's about having the right alliances, sending common messages, having the right forums to agree and also constructively disagree. So I think that's exactly what we're doing here. And I cannot keep on repeating this message that it will have to be economical, right? All of this will be doomed to fail if we are not finding business cases behind it, yeah? So, and just piggying back on your excellent point, I think on the risks, to complete that discussion, I think the biggest risk is that in pushing this transition, we're not getting all stakeholders to be heard, yeah? Because I think we have a lot of vested interests in this discussion.
Right.
We're in Brussels. There's always vested interests. And we need to make sure that in the grids of the future, there are many more stakeholders.
Who are they?
Small communities, the individual prosumers, as you said. Yeah. And they are not represented in this discussion. But they will be the ones who are sharing in the benefits and who are sharing in the burden. They are becoming active players of a future grid. And we need to make sure that they are financially incentivized to participate in the grid, which is not always in the interest of other players in the grid.
How do you do that?
Yeah, we need to remove taxes. We need to remove the fees that's currently prohibiting individual prosumers to feed their power into the grid. It's technologically possible, but it makes financially no sense because there's so many transactions. Very easy comparison, maybe, to the EU was very successful in removing roaming charges on a European level. I think this really helped to unfetter that market. Can we remove similar barriers for the individual consumer in an energy space? I think this would be really something worthwhile to talk about in Brussels.
Right.
Yeah.
great picture.
We have a question here, and again, I want to say again, please don't refrain from very long political statements. Just post a question. Go ahead. You can throw it forward. It's coming from behind.
Do like this.
Good pitch.
Thank you.
That was a basketball player there.
I hope the microphone is working.
Yeah, you just hold it close to your mouth. We can hear you.
Okay. Not a long political statement.
Please hold it close to your mouth.
Yep. My name is Marleen Geus. I'm a partner with Bird & Bird, and at the initiative of the European Commission, we are setting up and operating the blockchain European regulatory sandbox. Now, the blockchain buzzword has been mentioned, and I think that is a great thing to mention, because blockchain is here, we hear important use cases, in particular in the energy sector and in all these very topical discussions as the solution. But one of the big things that needs to be solved there is regulation. And that is not only about reducing regulation, deregulating, especially in energy and supply chains, it's also about having the right regulation in place. Now, we are going to discuss that in this sandbox with use cases. The application term is running right now. We hope for a lot of SMEs actually applying for that, and that will provide some solution. But I would warn against only deregulation. It's about appropriate regulation.
So is that a solution? More sandboxing, more involving, for example, SMEs and everybody else you're mentioning?
I think that everybody likes the sandboxes, but indeed, like I think I would phrase it more like you do need the trust framework in place, because indeed there's also no business case if nobody can trust the framework under which takes place, but you need to strike the right balance there, so that point is also taken. But I still believe massively in the potential of a technology like blockchain to exactly do that people can just in a neighborhood trade energy with each other. That would be such a huge relief for our energy system, and that's what we need to unleash. So if I always get the question inside the Commission from the digital realm, what is a crucial technology for you, this would be definitely one.
Right. So it's always like this, especially with energy discussion. As soon as it starts getting exciting, then the debate is over, and that's what happened now. There's a lot of questions. I mean, please do keep asking questions, because this conference is going to be so much more fun if you keep doing so. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I do want to ask all of you just very briefly now, just to wrap it up. So we're always very eager to say, we want this from the legislators, we want this from the SMEs, we want this and that. What do you want to contribute with, representing whoever you represent, each one of you? So I think we should wrap it out with that. What is it what do you contribute into solving the problems that we have identified now?
Yeah, I think that, for instance, my role and that of my boss working on the Green Deal is perhaps also fitting all these different bits and pieces together, which Pernille has mentioned. Like, it is a fact of life that we have these different regulations, but at a certain point we need to piece all of that together with a clear vision, because, again, I am convincing my boss that the European Green Deal desperately needs a digital injection. And then the national ownership is also indeed very important, because we won't get anywhere without the national ownership of this, to use this innovation potential. But that will be one, to piece it together in a concrete vision that we need to do this twinning really, really better.
Right. Pernille, considering that answer, I mean, there's still almost 20% who, no, wait, just 9% who say that.
There's a lot to address. So to answer your question, I will run again in 2024. I will tomorrow
just in case you wanted to know.
In case there are any Danish voters. I see 2 at least. What we also need is this incentivizing the change and the introduction of more digitalization, and that can come, and you mentioned that as well, and I really hope also the Commission will help those of us who want binding targets to be introduced in the Fit for 55 files. They might not be as high as we like them to be in social media, but we know that the binding targets can actually deliver the value. So that will be, and then I will, the blockchain lady, can you please send me an email after this session, because I'm a member of the technology assessment
panel. But Pernille, we need to wrap it up now, so you can meet afterwards.
And we would like to work more on that.
Thank you. Contribution.
Yeah, as Siemens, obviously, we want to be the people to supply the innovations and technologies needed to secure digital decarbonization for our benefit, for the benefit of our coming generations. I think it's a moral imperative that we do that and that we all work on this together.
Contribution.
Yeah, same contribution as well. We have an energy orchestrator, which is, a kind of digital twin that we actually also have here in the demo area that you can have a look at. But I think more broadly, contribute with technology solutions and the associated policies. What is needed to make sure that we are twinning this energy with the digital. And there are many policies, we talked about that here today. And for instance, just to close, another one, spectrum, absolutely critical. If you want to be able to connect all these things in this evolving grid, we need to have spectrum for the radio access to all these things, pulling them together.
All right, so I want to say we kind of scratched the surface of this topic, and I hope that you'll continue to dig into it when we are networking during breaks and so on and so forth. Because I mean, there's so many smart people with so many good ideas and experience that gathered here today. So why don't we make an effort to get into the debate of this all during the day? I would love that. I want to thank the panel. Thank you so much for coming up here and debating with me. Thank you.